fifth grade. Mrs. McCoy here, back to read Roald Dahl's The Witches. We left off. Our character had been turned into a mouse. He made it back into Grandmama's room, and now he's sitting there talking with her. So let's read to find out what else happens in Roald Dahl's The Witches. Okay, boys and girls, trying to center this for you so you can see it. Okay, there we go. Of course I'll look after you, my grandmother murmured. Who is the other one? That was a boy called Bruno Jenkins, I told her. They got him first. My grandmother took a new long black cigar out of a case in her handbag and put it in her mouth. Then she got out a box of matches. She struck a match, but her fingers were shaking so much that the flame kept missing the end of the cigar. When she got it lit at last, she took a long pull and sucked in the smoke. That seemed to calm her down a bit. Where did it happen? She whispered. Where is the witch now? Is she in the hotel? Grandmama, I said. It wasn't just one. It was hundreds. They were all over the place. They're right here in the hotel at this very moment. She leant forward and stared at me. You don't actually mean to tell me they're holding the annual meeting right here in the hotel. They've held it, Grandmama. It's finished. I heard it all. All of them, including the Grand High Witch herself, are downstairs now. They're, sticking boys and girls, sorry. They're pretending they're the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. They're all having tea with the manager. And they caught you? They smelt me out, I said. Dog's droppings, wasn't it? She sighed. I'm afraid so, but it wasn't strong. They very nearly didn't smell me because I hadn't had a bath for ages. Children should never have baths, my grandmother said. It's a dangerous habit. I agree, Grandmama. She paused, sucking at her cigar. Do you really mean to tell me that they are now all downstairs having tea? She said. I'm certain of it, Grandmama. There was another pause. I could see the old glint of excitement slowly coming back into my grandmother's eyes. And all of a sudden, she sat up very straight in her chair and said sharply, Tell me everything right from the beginning, and please hurry. I took a deep breath and began to talk. I told about going to the ballroom and hiding behind the screen to do my mouse training. I told about the notice saying Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. I told her all about the women coming in and sitting down and about the small woman who appeared on the stage and took off her mask. But when it came to describing what her face looked like underneath the mask, I simply couldn't find the right words. It was horrible, Grandmama, I said. Oh, it was horrible. It was like something that was going rotten. Go on, said my grandmother. Don't stop. Then I told her all about the others taking off their wigs and their gloves and their shoes, and how I saw before me a sea of bald, pimply heads, and how the women's fingers had little claws, and how their feet had no toes. My grandmother had come forward now in her armchair so that she was sitting right on the edge of it. Both of her hands were cupped over the gold knob of the stick she always used when walking. And she was staring down at me with eyes as bright as two stars. Then I told her how the Grand High Witch had shot out the fiery white hot sparks and how they had turned one of the other witches into a puff of smoke. I've heard about that, my grandmother cried out excitedly, but I've never quite believed it. You are the first non-witch to ever see it happening. It is the Grand High Witch's most famous punishment. It is known as getting fried. And all of the other witches are petrified of having it done to them. I am told that the Grand High Witch makes it a rule to fry at least one witch at each annual meeting. She does it in order to keep the rest of them on their toes. But they don't have any toes, Grandmama. I know they don't, my darling, but please go on. And then I told my grandmother about the delayed action mouse maker, and when I came to the bit about turning all the children of England into mice, she actually leapt out of her chair, shouting, I knew it! I knew they were brewing up something tremendous. We've got to stop them, I said. She turned and stared at me. You can't stop witches, she said. Just look at the power that terrible Grand High Witch has with her eyes alone. She could kill any one of us at any time with those white-hot sparks of hers. You saw it yourself." "Even so, Grandmama, we've got to stop her from turning all the children of England into mice." "You haven't quite finished," she said. "Tell me about Bruno. How did they get to him?" So I described how Bruno Jenkins had come in and how I had actually seen him with my own eyes being shrunk into a mouse. My grandmother looked at Bruno, who was guzzling away in the bowl of bananas. "Does he never stop eating?" she asked. "Never," I said. "Can you explain something to me, Grandmama?" "I'll try," she said. She reached out and lifted me off the table and put me on her lap. Very gently, she began stroking the soft fur along my back. It felt nice. "What is it what you want to ask me, my darling?" she said. "The thing I don't understand," I said, "is how Bruno and I are still able to talk and think just as we did before." "It is quite simple," my grandmother said. "All they've done is to shrink you and give you 4 legs and a furry coat, but they haven't been able to change you into 100% mouse. You are still yourself in everything except your appearance. You've got your own mind and your own brain and your own voice, and thank goodness for that." "So I'm not really an ordinary mouse at all," I said. "I'm sort of a mouse person." "Quite right," she said. "You are a human in a mouse clothing. You are very special." We sat in silence for a few moments while my grandmother went on stroking me very gently with one finger and puffing her cigar with the other hand. The only sound in the room was made by Bruno as he attacked the bananas in the bowl. But I wasn't doing nothing as I lay there on her lap. I was thinking like mad. My brain was whizzing as it had never whizzed before. "Grandmama," I said, I may have a bit of an idea." "Yes, my darling, what is it?" "The Grand High Witch told them her room number. 454, right?" "Right," she said. "Well, my room number is 554. Mine, 554, is on the 5th floor, so hers, 454, will be on the 4th floor." "That is correct," my grandmother said. "Then don't you think it's possible that room 454 is directly underneath 554? "That is more than likely," she said. "These modern hotels are all built like boxes of bricks. But what if it is?" "Would you please take me out onto my balcony so I can look down?" I said. All the rooms in the Hotel Magnificent had small private balconies. My grandmother carried me through into my own bedroom and out onto my balcony. We both peered down to the balcony immediately below. "Now, if that is her room," I said, "then I bet I could climb down there somehow and get in." "And get caught all over again," my grandmother said. "I won't allow it." "At this moment," I said, "all the witches are down on the Sunshine Terrace having tea with the manager. The Grand High Witch probably won't be back until 6 o'clock or just before. That's when she's going to dish out supplies of that foul formula to the ancient ones who were too old to climb trees after Gruntel's eggs." "And what if you did manage to get into her room?" my grandmother said. "And then what?" "Then I should try to find the place where she keeps her supply of delayed action mouse maker. And if I succeed, then I would steal 1 bottle of it and bring it back here." "Could you carry it?" "I think so," I said. "It's a very small bottle." "I'm frightened of that stuff," my grandmother said. "What would you do with it if you did manage to get one?" "1 bottle is enough for 500 people, I said. "That would give each and every witch down there a double dose at last. We could turn them all into mice." My grandmother jumped about an inch in the air. We were out on my balcony, and there was a drop of about 1,000,000 feet below us, and I nearly bounced out of her hand over the railing when she jumped. "Be careful with me, Grandmama," I said. "What an idea!" she cried. "It's fantastic! It's tremendous! You're a genius, my darling." "Wouldn't it be something?" I said. "Wouldn't that really be something?" "We'd get rid of every witch in England in one swoop," she cried, "and the Grand High Witch in the bargain." "We've got to try," I said. "Listen," she said, nearly dropping me over the balcony once again in her excitement. "If we brought this off, it would be the greatest triumph in the whole history of witchery." "There's a lot of work to do," I said. "Of course there's a lot of work to do," she said. Just for a start, supposing you did manage to get hold of one of those bottles, how would you get it into their food? We'll work that out later, I said. Let's try to get this stuff first. How about if we find out for sure if that's her room just below it? We'll check it out immediately, my grandmother cried. Come along. There's not a second to waste. Carrying me in one hand, she went bustling out of the bedroom and along the corridor, banging her stick on the carpet with each step she took. We went down the stairs one flight to the 4th floor. The bedrooms on either side of the corridor had their numbers painted on the doors in gold. All right, boys and girls, we're going to stop there, so stay tuned tomorrow to see what else happens in Roald Dahl's The Witches. Have a great day.